Hi, U.S. history. Happy Wednesday. I hope you're enjoying this wonderful week. The weather is great. Getting out, going for a run, going for a walk, going for a hike, going for a bike ride, going for a horseback ride, whatever it may be. I hope you're getting out and enjoying this. We are in week 7, and we've only got a few weeks left. We can do this. Playing a little of Monsters and Men this morning. But yeah, guys, we can do this. Today, if you take a look at our agenda, we've got a lecture. We're going to look at the perspectives of Latin America, and we have a DICE assignment. Once again, with our lecture, we are going to, I'll have some code words hidden throughout the lecture. All you have to do is put them on a sheet or a document and submit that, and you get points for watching this lecture and taking notes. This is our last lecture for this unit. We'll be having a quiz in a couple weeks, but we still have some other things to do within this unit, and they don't involve notes. So enjoy our last lecture for the unit. Let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to jump into our PowerPoint, and we are still talking about perspectives. This time today, we're talking about perspectives in Latin America. So let's go ahead and begin. Remember, you can pause me at any time to take notes, but I'm going to tell you about what's going on in Latin America between the tension of the US and the USSR, because this is going to get intense. All right? Okay, here we go. So this guy here, this is Batista. And Batista was the leader in Cuba at this time, right after World War II in the 1950s. Now, see, Cuba is 90 miles from Florida, just south of the Florida Keys. Cuba is a great little island, tropical island, and the United States thought, it'd be really cool to have this island just 90 miles away from Florida, and to have it to be kind of like an island Vegas, an island Las Vegas. And so a bunch of different businessmen, politicians included, started buying areas in Cuba to put hotels, to put casinos, because the idea was to make Cuba kind of a Las Vegas. But the United States didn't control Cuba. Cuba was its own independent country. We would just be buying up land, and, the government could tax us if we put in those casinos however they wanted. Well, that was great. But Batista, he was their leader at the time. He kind of started to realize, I don't know if I want all this foreign influence in Cuba. And Batista started to have some communist ideas. And so we thought, well, if we continue to see a guy like Batista lead Cuba, we're not going to be able to do this whole island Las Vegas in Cuba. And so our own CIA puts in a plan to overthrow Batista because of his communist beliefs and because the possibility that he won't let this capitalism of hotels and casinos start to build in Cuba. And so our CIA overthrows him, which that's a shady situation, guys. We're overthrowing other countries' leaders. Okay, we're putting our business, our noses, into somebody else's business very directly in order to benefit our business. Okay, well, the idea is overthrow Batista, somebody else will lead Cuba that will allow US to put in US properties in Cuba. But that was where the misthinking happened. Instead of Batista, Cuba looks to another leader, obviously because they overthrew Batista. They look to another leader to lead them. And this time, you kind of get a worse situation, okay, in the fact that they get another leader, but this leader is even more communist sympathizing. At this time, if we were in class, I would ask you, who do you think this is? And the answer is this guy, Fidel Castro. So Castro ends up being who the people, a large majority of people want to lead them. He promised a betterment of the country, but through communist types of ideas. Now, he's not openly communist at this time, but his ideas are 100% communist. The idea of government-controlled business, people get equal pay, things like that. So what he does is he suspends elections once he starts getting this position of leadership, and he seizes all American property. And what do I mean by seizes all American property? Is he takes all that land that American businessmen had owned that were going to build hotels and casinos, and he takes it. And he says, I'm not paying you for it. This is Cuban soil. You guys get out. You don't belong here. And of course, that makes a lot of American businessmen and a lot of politicians who are funded by American businessmen very angry. About 2 years later, Fidel Castro will admit he is creating a communist nation. He admits he is allies with the USSR. And of course, that is mind-blowing to the United States. Primarily because Cuba is 90 miles away from Florida. And our greatest enemy is right there at our doorstep. So this creates even more of a scare of communism in this nation during the 1960s, when Fidel Castro is openly communist and openly allied with the USSR. Again, tension very, very hot between the US and the USSR, but this time Cuba is the focus. All right, let's pause right there. On this slide, I have 2 code words for you today. Again, 2. Some of you are only writing 1, and I can't give you full credit if you only have the 1. 2 code words. Third hour, your code word is rose, R-O-S-E. 6th hour, your code word is Sophia, S-O-P-H-I-A. All right, again, 3rd hour, your code word is rose. 6th hour, your code word is Sophia. All right, let's continue. So, what does our CIA do? What does our government do? Well, our government says, well, then we got to get rid of Castro. And in 1961, our CIA plans a operation known as the Bay of Pigs. The reason it was called the Bay of Pigs is because we're going to go in through the Bay of Pigs. That's an actual bay, like where ocean comes inland towards the island. And then the bay is actually called the Baja de Cochinos. And this is why they would call it the Bay of Pigs invasion. We're going to send in a bunch of Green Berets, highly specialized soldiers, to invade and overthrow and actually kill Castro. Which, if it all goes right, then hopefully what that means is Cuba will be a friendly country again, as opposed to a communist country. But if it goes wrong, that could be very bad. And of course, it went wrong. Somehow, Castro, Cuba's intelligence, found out about the invasion, and it was a failed attempt. You can look up more information on this, exactly how it failed. But basically, the assassination attempt was somehow leaked. Our Green Berets were taken prisoner. We would get them back, but it was a failed attempt, and this is very bad. This is very, very bad. One, it's bad because Cuba now knows that the United States is enemy number 1. Prior to this, they were allies with the USSR. They knew the United States believes in things different with them, but they weren't necessarily enemy number 1. We're now enemy number 1. We're willing to assassinate their leader. 2, it makes us look very bad to the entire world. The entire world now wondering, well, what does the U.S. want? Does the U.S. want to control the entire world? If they're willing to go and assassinate leaders of other countries, that doesn't look good at all. So, once again, that tension in the Cold War between the U.S., capitalist and democracy, and the USSR, communism, has heated up again. This time, kind of the hot spot, I would say, is the mild spot, not cold, but definitely not war. The hot spot being Cuba. Okay. So, guys, that's the end of our lecture. That's the end of our notes. I need to give you code word number 2. Word number 2 for third hour is Miami, Miami. And sixth hour, your code word number 2 is Florida, Florida. So third hour, Miami. Sixth hour, Florida. And once again, this is another show that Miss Rivera has been binge watching throughout this quarantine. If you can name the show that these code words fit with, that'll be an extra 5 points of extra credit. And I thought it fits today's lecture because we're talking about Cuba, which is 90 miles off the coast of Florida. So, guys, hope you enjoyed this lecture. Before you shut me down, let me go ahead and explain our DICE assignment for today. So we're going to jump right into our quarantine, and you can see our DICE assignment is Sputnik. If you go into our Wednesday folder here, you will find that there is a reading that you need to do on Sputnik. Okay, read about the Sputnik satellite. It's a short reading, I would say 1 page long. And then what you're going to do is we're going to do a little bit opposite of what we did with our last assignment. You're going to read about the Sputnik satellite, 1957. You're going to write 1 fact and 2 facts that fit this generalization. So this time I created the generalization. You have to make the facts that fit the generalization. So our generalization is fear of falling behind often serves as a motivator for achievement. That's a generalization that can fit anything. It fits this situation. Maybe it fits your situation about your grades and your classes. Fear of falling behind often serves as a motivator. Okay. But you're going to find 2 facts within our reading that fits into that generalization. Okay. That the reason why we create, or Russia creates that satellite, or we start to do things in order to create our satellites, you're going to find 2 facts that are listed in that reading to support that generalization. All right, guys, I'm going to let Mice and Men kind of take us out here, and wishing you a great Wednesday. Talk to you later.